Have you ever wondered what secrets your family might be hiding? In this video, we uncover a shocking truth buried beneath the roots of an ancient oak tree. Join us as we unearth a legacy of mystery and unravel the secrets of the past. In the gentle hills of Monroe County, Georgia, nestled between endless fields of golden rye and the soft lull of cicadas, sits a parcel of land that has been in the Delaney family for over a century and a half. The house is a stately old colonial with white pillars and green shutters, weathered just enough to tell you it's seen things, good things, hard things, unspoken things. But behind the house, past the rocking chairs and the swing hanging from the porch beam, stands the true heart of the Delaney estate. A massive oak tree. To a stranger, it might appear ordinary, one tree among hundreds on the property. But to anyone born into the Delaney name, that oak is sacred. Its limbs stretch wide, arms flung open to the sky like it's trying to embrace the entire horizon. Its bark is thick, dark, and furrowed, carved in places with generations of initials. Underneath its canopy, family picnics have been held, babies cradled, arguments broken out and healed. The tree is older than the house, older than anyone alive in the family. Older, some whisper, than time itself. They call it the witness. Because no matter what happened over the years, wars, deaths, births, betrayals, that tree stood watch. It saw everything. Narrator, softer, with a hint of tension. Every summer, the family gathered beneath it. Every Thanksgiving, the youngest Delaney child would be photographed with a turkey leg in hand, smiling in the shade of its branches. Every engagement, every funeral, every heartbreak was grieved or celebrated under those limbs. It wasn't just a tree. It was the family spine, their sanctuary, their shrine. But it was also something else, something darker. Because beneath that tree, buried in its roots, entwined with time and silence, was a truth no one ever meant to be found. A truth that refused to stay buried. The Delaneys were the kind of family that appeared untouchable. Old money, good manners, and the type of Southern charm that made people lean in when they spoke. Patriarchs were war veterans. Matriarchs ran the local charities. They sent their children to college with heirloom rings in their pockets and stories of grit and legacy in their ears. To be a Delaney was to carry weight, pride, yes, but also responsibility. You didn't air your dirty laundry. You didn't ask too many questions. You kept the past polished and clean, like the silverware used every Christmas Eve. And you didn't disturb the oak. That was the rule. You could swing from it, pose by it, even lean against it to read a book. But you did not dig near it. You did not plant new shrubs or build benches too close. Not because of any law, but because of something unspoken. Something passed down through half sentences and nervous glances. I wouldn't put that shovel there. Great Aunt Ruth once said to Lily when she was just 9, digging in the dirt nearby. Why not? It's not good to go poking where roots run deep. And then she'd smiled, wide but strained. Some roots are holding more than dirt. Lily thought it was just superstition. Just one of those creepy Southern expressions like the devil's beating his wife when it rained and the sun shined at the same time. But she never forgot it. Years later, when Lily was 27 and engaged to be married on the family lawn, she would remember those words again, because she was the one who broke the rule. She was the one who disturbed the roots. And what she found beneath the oak tree would unravel everything the Delaneys thought they knew about who they were, where they came from, and who they had left behind. They always said the oak tree was strong because its roots ran deep. They didn't know how right they were. But sometimes, when roots grow too deep, they strangle what's above. They keep secrets trapped in the dark. And they don't let go until someone's brave enough, or foolish enough, to start digging. That summer, Lily was both. It was supposed to be a celebration. The Delaney family estate was in full preparation mode for Lily's wedding that coming fall. She and her fiancé, Mark, had decided to hold the ceremony right on the property, under the oak, of course. Invitations had been printed, tables ordered, caterers scheduled. It was Lily's dream to walk barefoot through the garden her grandmother once tended, her veil catching in the same breeze that rustled the tree's heavy limbs. She had no idea that what lay beneath her chosen isle would change her forever. The landscaper arrived the second week of June. He was just a quiet man named Reggie, mid-40s, balding, polite. A small-town guy from Milledgeville who ran a family landscaping company. Reggie had been hired to clear space for a flower bed near the base of the oak tree, where a circular altar of white roses and wisteria would eventually be installed. Lily was there that morning, sipping sweet tea on the porch, watching as Reggie and his crew marked out the soil. The morning was thick with humidity, the kind of southern heat that makes your clothes stick before 10 a.m. She remembers hearing the first scrape of the shovel, then the dull clang of metal against something solid. At first, they thought it was just an old rock, maybe a rusted pipe. This was an old estate, after all. But as Reggie and his assistant cleared more of the dirt, something unusual began to emerge, a rectangular shape. A box. It was nearly 2 feet long, heavy, sealed, and buried directly beneath the thickest root of the tree. They stopped digging. Lily, curious but not yet alarmed, came down from the porch. Reggie looked up at her, wiping sweat from his brow. "You expecting a time capsule or something?" he joked. Lily stared at the box. Her stomach twisted. She didn't laugh. Her father, Jacob Delaney, came down minutes later. So did her Uncle Roy. The family gathered slowly, first the curious, then the cautious. Reggie offered to take the box out for them, but Jacob insisted he do it himself. It took all his strength to lift it out of the hole. The iron was rusted, the edges corroded, but the shape held. It looked like an old military lockbox. A heavy clasp sealed the lid. The faint remnants of wax, long dried, were smeared across the opening, like someone had tried to ensure it wouldn't be opened easily. Lily reached forward and placed her hand on the lid. It felt cold, even in that heat. "Let's take it inside," Jacob said. They gathered in the dining room, the box set in the center of the table. The same table where Thanksgiving dinners had been served, where grace was said every Sunday. Now no one was eating. No one was speaking. Lily unlatched the box with a hesitant click. Inside was a time capsule of something far more personal, far more damning. There were letters, dozens of them, folded and tied with fading blue ribbon. Their edges were browned with age, the ink smudged but legible. Each one addressed to the same person. "Dear Samuel." Beneath the letters were old photographs, black and white Polaroids, some creased, others torn. One of them showed a young woman standing barefoot in a field. She looked strikingly familiar, her face soft but strong, her eyes wide and hollow. "That's Mama," Jacob whispered. "Margaret Delaney." There were more. A photograph of a man, tall, handsome, dark-skinned, holding a baby in his arms. A silver locket with initials engraved, CMD. Then the birth certificate. Narrator, somber. It read, "Name, Catherine May Delaney. Date of birth, June 3rd, 1963. Mother, Margaret Elaine Delaney. Father, no name listed." Jacob stared at the paper. His hands trembled. Roy's mouth fell open. "What the hell is this?" Lily said nothing. Her fingers had gone numb. There had never been a Catherine in the family. Not in any family tree. Not in any photograph album. Not in any story told over pecan pie or lemonade on the porch. Margaret had only ever spoken of 2 children, Jacob and his sister, Rose. And Rose had died in infancy. But this document told a different story, and the letters confirmed it. They were dated from 1962 to 1964. In them, Margaret wrote about a man named Samuel Reed, a jazz musician from New Orleans she'd met during a summer festival. The letters described late-night meetings, secret rendezvous under that very oak, a pregnancy hidden under layered dresses, and long visits to her cousin in Savannah. Margaret wrote of love, deep, desperate, forbidden love, and then fear, panic, shame. Her final letter, dated November 12, 1964, was addressed to "My dearest Catherine." In it, she confessed to giving her daughter away, to sending her with Samuel to Louisiana so she could live a life free of the cruelty, judgment, and hatred that Margaret feared would swallow them both whole. And then nothing. No more letters. Just a locket. A tiny curl of hair pressed between parchment. Lily would later describe that day as the death of everything we thought we were. Because the truth wasn't just shocking. It was unbearable. Margaret Delaney, matriarch, piano teacher, choir director, woman of the year, had buried a child. Not in the ground, but in memory, in silence. A biracial daughter, born in secret during a time when the South was aflame with segregation, race riots, and bloody church steps. A daughter who would have shattered the pristine image of the Delaney name in 1963. So Margaret made a choice. She sent Catherine away and buried her memory under the oak, where she knew no one would ever dare to look. Until now. Now that memory had claws. It had a name, and it had unfinished business. Secrets have a way of bleeding into the generations that follow, even when no one speaks them, even when there are no photos, no stories, no names. They linger in glances, in the tension at the dinner table, in the spaces between words that should have been said but never were. And in the Delaney family, that silence had always been there. They just didn't understand what it was keeping at bay. After the box was opened, Jacob Delaney didn't speak for almost 3 days. Not to his daughter, not to his brother Roy. He didn't eat, didn't sleep. He just sat on the porch swing, staring out at the oak tree, at the hole they'd filled back in, now covered in a layer of mulch and denial. But Lily couldn't stop. She wanted answers, needed them. She took the letters to her room and laid them out chronologically. 47 in total, written in Margaret's swirling, elegant handwriting. The early ones were breathless, romantic, filled with youthful longing and reckless hope. Margaret was 27 when she met Samuel Reed, 10 years younger than the man who was already making a name for himself as a jazz pianist along the Gulf Coast. She described his music like a prayer, his laughter like something she hadn't heard in years. But from the very beginning, she knew it was dangerous. They would never understand. One letter read, "Not Daddy, not this town, not even God, if I'm being honest." Another detailed a violent scene after her father had seen her speaking to Samuel at a county fair. He slapped me, in public, said I was acting like a whore, told me if I ever shamed this family again, I'd be dead to him. The letters revealed a Margaret no one had ever known, a woman full of passion, trapped in a life chosen for her. Her marriage to Charles Delaney, Jacob's father, was arranged, political. Charles was cold, controlling, and while he provided everything a woman was supposed to want, he gave nothing that she actually needed. Samuel, she wrote, made her feel seen. And when she became pregnant, she wrote that for a moment she imagined escaping, starting a life somewhere no one knew the Delaney name. But reality caught up fast. In March of 1963, Margaret was sent away. The family told everyone she was ill and needed rest in Savannah with cousins. But she wasn't sick. She was 6 months pregnant and hiding. One of the letters, dated the day after Catherine's birth, was tear-stained and frantic. "She's perfect. I can't stop crying. I held her for barely 15 minutes before they took her. I was told she'd be safer that way, that no one could know. But I heard her cry when they carried her away. It haunts me." That same letter revealed the name of the midwife. Evelyn May, colored, discreet, paid in cash. And beneath that, a line that would burn into Lily's mind for weeks. "I buried the truth under the oak." Samuel's box, the locket, the letters. It's all there. Maybe one day, someone braver than me will dig it up. That was the moment Lily knew it hadn't been an accident. The box hadn't just been lost or forgotten. It had been buried with intention. Buried beneath the family's symbol of unity, like some twisted joke. Or maybe a desperate plea for remembrance. The more she read, the more Lily began to understand something painful. Her grandmother had not been the woman they'd thought. And yet, she also wasn't a monster. She was a prisoner of her era, of her father, of her name, and eventually of her own choices. Jacob finally broke his silence on the third night. He came into the kitchen where Lily sat at the table, the letters spread around her like a historian in mid-excavation. He didn't look at the pages. He didn't speak right away. Then, softly, "Mama used to cry under that tree. When she thought we were asleep." Lily looked up. "I thought she was mourning Rose. But now, I think it was Catherine." He sat, his voice thick. I remember hearing voices sometimes. I thought she was talking to herself, but maybe she was talking to her. He shook his head. She carried that weight alone. All those years. Can you imagine? Knowing you have another child out there and pretending she never existed? He choked back tears. And I never even knew. God, I didn't know. The Delaney men weren't known for crying. But that night, Jacob did. And so did Lily. Because the weight of the secret wasn't just historical. It was personal. A missing sister. A mother they'd never truly known. A version of their family that had existed in the shadows, without their knowledge or consent. And suddenly, all the small cracks in their history began to make sense. The unexplained tension between Margaret and her husband Charles. The summer trips she refused to take. The nights she would sit alone on the porch, sipping whiskey and staring into the dark. Even her funeral, how quiet it had been. No slideshow, no photo montages, just a closed casket and a silence no one had dared to question. Until now, secrets don't just disappear when the person dies. They pass on like heirlooms. And the Delaneys had just inherited a truth that none of them had been prepared to carry. The trouble with digging up the past is that sometimes it doesn't stop at the first layer. Once unearthed, the truth has a way of spreading, cracking the ground wide open. And in the weeks after the Delaneys discovered the box beneath the oak, that's exactly what happened. Lily became obsessed. She stopped planning her wedding, stopped answering texts. Her world shrank to a series of letters, dusty genealogy books, and online ancestry databases. She was looking for one thing, Catherine, or rather, who Catherine had become. The birth certificate listed no father. The letters named him as Samuel Reed, but beyond that, the trail was cold. There were no adoption papers, no official records of guardianship, no indication that Margaret's father had done anything legal with the baby. But there was one name repeated across multiple letters. Evelyn May, the midwife, a woman discreet, trustworthy, and familiar with complicated situations. Lily searched record from 1960s Georgia and found something. A nurse named Evelyn Ruth May, who had worked in a private capacity in Monroe County during the Civil Rights era. She died in 1993, but she had a daughter, Anita May, now 72 years old, living just outside Atlanta. Lily and her father made the drive together. It was their first outing since the discovery. The car ride was quiet, tense. Neither knew what to expect. Anita opened the door wearing a red scarf and thick glasses. Her eyes squinted when she heard the name Delaney. Then she sighed. I was wondering when one of you would show up. Inside her home, surrounded by dusty books and religious paintings, Anita told them what her mother had told her. That in the summer of 1963, a young white woman from a prominent family came to her mother in fear for her life. She was terrified, Anita said, not just for herself, but for the child. Said her daddy would kill them both if he found out. The baby girl was healthy. Her name, Margaret insisted, was Catherine, but there was no hospital birth, no legal adoption. According to Anita, the baby was given directly to Samuel Reed, who had waited in a car behind the house. He'd held his daughter, wept, and left without saying a word. Anita only met him once, years later. She remembered a tall man with a deep voice and tired eyes. He looked like someone who'd spent his whole life running from ghosts. Lily asked if Anita knew what happened to Catherine. Anita didn't, but she had a suggestion. Check New Orleans. Check the music scene. Why? Because Samuel never gave up music. He just gave up everything else. That was the clue Lily needed. Back home, Lily and Jacob combed through Louisiana records. They found a Samuel Elijah Reed who died in 1999, a jazz pianist. The obituary listed a surviving daughter, Catherine Reed Lowry, a schoolteacher, born in 1963. Lily's hands trembled. She looked her up, and there she was, Catherine May Reed Lowry. Died 5 years earlier in Baton Rouge. No obituary photo, but the next line made Lily go cold. Survived by 2 sons, Jeremiah Lowry and Marcus Lowry. It took 2 more weeks to work up the courage. But eventually, Lily typed a message on Facebook and sent it to Jeremiah Lowry. Hi, I hope this isn't too forward. I'm reaching out because I believe we may be related. My name is Lily Delaney. Then she waited. An hour passed. Then another. Then a day. And then a reply. Is this some kind of joke? My mom never spoke about her family. We thought they didn't want her. Lily's heart broke. She responded with pictures of the letters, the birth certificate, the photo of Margaret holding Catherine. She explained everything. The tree, the box, the silence. Jeremiah replied 3 hours later. We need to talk. The first call lasted over 2 hours. Then came the Zoom calls, the emails, the exchanges of memories, fragments, pain. Jeremiah and Marcus had grown up believing their mother was abandoned, that her mother had been ashamed of her. Catherine had spent years trying to find answers, but her father, Samuel, never spoke of it. When pressed, he would simply say, "That part of our life is buried. Ain't no good in digging up ghosts." She died thinking she was unwanted, unworthy, forgotten. But now, 5 years too late, the truth was clawing its way back into the light. Lily and Jacob invited the brothers to visit. It wasn't easy. The first meeting was awkward, stilted. Old wounds don't close just because you apologize. But slowly, something began to shift. They walked the property, stood beneath the oak, read the letters aloud. Jeremiah cried when he saw the locket. Marcus said the field smelled exactly like the one in a recurring dream Catherine used to have. She described it, this tree, this wind. We thought it was just made up, something she wanted. But now, maybe it was a memory. An investigation was opened, not by the police, but by the family themselves. They hired a genealogist. They interviewed surviving locals. They went through every box in the attic, and bit by bit, the full picture came together. Margaret had sent the baby away to protect her. Charles Delaney, Jacob's father, had never known about Catherine. Margaret's father had been the enforcer, the silencer, and Margaret had spent her entire life living with the guilt. Somewhere in her final years, she had buried that box. Not to hide it, but so someone might find it. The past is never really gone. It waits, sometimes quietly, sometimes beneath a tree, but eventually it comes back. And when it does, it doesn't ask for permission. There are some trees that mark the passage of time. Others bear fruit. Some simply offer shade. But this oak, it bore a secret. It carried generations on its branches, some known, some hidden. And now, with the truth finally unearthed, it carried something else. A legacy rewritten. The Delaneys were never the same after that summer. Not in ways you could see from the outside. The house still stood. The field still bloomed. The tree still stretched toward the sky. But inside the family, something had shifted. The lie they'd never known they were living was gone. And in its place, pain, yes, but also possibility. Lily never held the wedding. Not because of the discovery itself, but because the truth had changed her. She and Mark agreed to postpone it, but deep down, Lily knew it wasn't just about timing. She needed to understand who she was, fully, before she stepped into anyone else's life. The tree she once considered a family heirloom now felt like something else. Not a monument to legacy, but a grave marker for the version of the Delaneys that had never truly existed. Jacob began attending therapy, something no Delaney man had ever admitted to doing. He started sorting through the attic, organizing what was left behind by Margaret and Charles. For the first time, he spoke about his childhood openly, about the things he'd buried, the fear, the silence, the subtle ways his father had weaponized shame. And he invited Jeremiah and Marcus to join him. At first, they declined. It was too much, too fast, but eventually they came. One weekend in October, they stood in Margaret's old sewing room, reading through decades of journals, recipes, letters that meant nothing and everything. Jacob found a half-finished baby blanket, tucked in a box labeled Hope. It was hers, he whispered. She made it for her, for Catherine. Jeremiah took it in his hands, held it to his chest. The oak tree became a place of reckoning. No longer just a backdrop for photos or summer picnics. It became sacred in a different way, not as a shrine to perfection, but as a symbol of honesty. They placed a small bench beside it. Not fancy, just wood, simple, weatherproof. And beside it, mounted to the base of the tree, was a brass plaque. It read, Catherine May Delaney, 1963. You were never forgotten. You were just hidden. And now you are home. The family started new traditions. Thanksgiving was still held at the house, but now the first toast was always made under the oak. Lily would read one of Margaret's letters aloud. Jeremiah would share a memory of Catherine, what she loved, how she laughed, the lullabies she sang to her sons. And for the first time, it felt like a full family. Not perfect, not unscarred, but whole. There's something deeply human about wanting to bury our mistakes. We dig holes in the past. We plant false memories like flowers, hoping the truth won't grow back through the soil. But eventually it does. Truth finds light, even under centuries of roots. The oak tree still stands in Monroe County. It still casts a long shadow over the field. But the shadow no longer hides something. It holds it. So if you ever find yourself walking past an old tree planted generations ago, ask yourself, what does it know? What has it seen? What might be buried beneath its roots? And would you be brave enough to find out? The Delaneys thought they were built on tradition. Turns out they were built on silence. And when that silence was broken, their story truly began. What do you think really happened beneath the oak tree? Was Margaret a villain or a victim of her time? Did the family truly heal, or did they just learn how to live with the truth? Drop your theories below.